West Hill United is a progressive spiritual community where how you live is more important than what you believe. West Hill United is a people, a place, an idea. We are a community living out of a progressive faith, striving to make a positive difference in our own lives, the lives of others, and the world. Join us Sundays at 10:30 a.m. or connect with us at any time.
Good morning and welcome to our gathering on this cold, wintry day here in Southeast Scarborough. And a particularly warm welcome to Steve Gukadas when he is introduced. We'll reintroduce and tell you more about him later in the service. We would like to begin today by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation and was previously occupied by the Huron-Wendat and Seneca First Nations. This land is covered by Treaty 20 and the Williams Treaties of 1923 and lies within the lands of the Protected Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement of 1701, an Indigenous citizenship law made between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations in 1701 that extends from Montreal to Fort Erie. One of the core values within the idea of a dish with one spoon is that those who use the land should not abuse the land. Individuals and groups should only take what they need from the land so that there will be a healthy, long-term, sustainable environment. All participants in the agreement or treaty had the responsibility to ensure that the dish would never be empty by taking care of the land and all of the living beings on it. Despite the good intentions of this treaty and land acknowledgement, today there are 40 long-term drinking water advisories in First Nations communities across Canada, 28 of which are in Ontario. Words are just simply not enough. Action is needed, and it behooves us to take up pen and paper and write to our local member of Parliament, laying out our concerns before them. Again, a warm welcome to those meeting with us here and to those on Zoom in the Scarborough area, across the United States, the United Kingdom, Africa, and beyond. We're delighted to have you with us. Please enjoy the service. Our reading this morning is from Steve Gukadas, his book, Humanism from the Heart. When people talk about meaning or purpose, they usually refer to something larger, something that exists in the grand scheme of life here on Earth. They often believe that they have a destiny, a plan laid out before them, a path they must follow, something they need to achieve before their time runs out. It's as if there's an invisible blueprint guiding their every step, a divine map charting out their journey. This belief can be comforting. It suggests that someone or something has given them a purpose, and without that purpose, they feel adrift, as if they are nothing. But I'm here to tell you that's simply not true. You are something. I'm something. We are all something. What the something is, though, that's entirely up to you. No one else can define your worth. No one else can dictate your ambitions or tell you who you were meant to be. You are the arbiter of your own destiny. You hold the reins, shaping your own meaning, crafting your own purpose, and building your own life. Sure, some forces can hold you back, things beyond your control, illness, toxic relationships, negative environments, and so on. These can feel like insurmountable barriers at times, but ultimately it's you who's in charge of your response. As long as you're not harming others in the process, then do you. For me, my family embodies my meaning. They are my purpose, they are my life. Everything I do revolves around them. I would go to great lengths for them because they give me the motivation to take care of myself so that I can be present for them for as long as I can. My family has shown me that my life has value and that I matter, not just to myself, but to them as well. Don't let anyone convince you that life is meaningless without a perceived given purpose. Even those who say such things are operating under the belief that their meaning and purpose come from an internal source, like the love they feel for their family, or a personal desire to see things through. In their own way, they just might not see it clearly yet. If they were to relinquish the notion of a preordained destiny, they won't simply vanish. They won't be lost forever. They might feel disoriented for a while, sure, but eventually they would be just like those of us who have discovered our own meaning and purpose. They would be compelled to confront reality. They would be forced to open their eyes to feel and truly see. In the end, they would uncover the essential truth of our existence. All we have is each other. We are interconnected in this wild ride called life, sharing experiences, struggles, joys, and sorrows. This connection is where we often find our truest sense of purpose. It's not about waiting for a grand destiny to unfold, but recognizing the significance of the relationships we nurture and the love we share. It's about finding joy in the little moments, in laughter, in tears, in the bonds we create with one another. So embrace your journey, forge your path. Don't wait for permission to claim your worth. The world is waiting for you to shine your light, share your unique gifts, and build a legacy that is solely yours. You are not just here to fulfill a purpose handed down to you. You are here to create one that resonates with your heart, your values, and your dreams. That is your power, your privilege, and your truth. Offered as wisdom for the journey.
May we walk in its light.
Well, it's an absolute delight today and a pleasure to welcome back a friend and colleague, Steve Gakautas. Now, as you know, Steve has been doing the author tour, celebrating his book, Humanism from the Heart, Building Bridges Beyond Belief. Steve holds a Bachelor of Arts in History, a Bachelor of Education in primary, junior, and intermediate grades. He's a humanist officiant who conducts many meaningful ceremonies. He's an ambassador for Humanist Canada. He's a leader of the Windsor-Essex chapter of Humanist Canada. He's an ambassador for Recovering from Religion, Sunday Assembly, and in 2024 was awarded the King Charles III Coronation Medal for the inspiration and the energy he brings to his community in Windsor-Essex. And he's a dad and a husband with lovely children, one of whom is here today and is most helpful. So Steve, it's a pleasure to welcome you. Come on up.
Wow, what a welcome. Thank you so much for having me here again. It's such a pleasure being back and seeing some familiar faces here in the crowd and also online. I saw some people that I recognize as well. So nice. Scott, that was very bustingly. I'm not sure how to say it either. But it was very fantastic. It's been amazing. The voices and everything I hear, just an amazing place to be. It's my second time here at West Hill. The first time I talked about interfaith families and building community with people who have different backgrounds and beliefs. That's actually what my book is about, because for the last 11 years now, I've been married to a Christian. And we're raising 2 kids in an interfaith household because I am a secular humanist. So the last talk I did was about getting along with people, finding commonalities instead of differences. And I talked to Joe recently and I said, you know what, I'm coming to the area again. I'd like to be able to do another talk. And then I was thinking, like, what could I be talking about? Well, this time of year, it's really nice to reflect on memories of the past, memories of things that have made us who we are. And like Martin had said before, not all memories are going to be happy. Not all memories are going to be joyful. There's going to be things that, bring up things from your past that you don't want to think about anymore, but these do give you opportunities to heal. So I think today, all-around goofy character, I always put that on everything because I like to give people a warning, because if you don't know who I am, things get a little bit squirrely sometimes, and I just want to brief you ahead of time that I'm a bit of a goofy character in case anything is a little bit out of character for a church setting. Anyway, so I titled this talk, Why Our Finite Memories Matter Most, and What Time Can't Take Away. So, as humans, we get about 100 years on this earth if we're lucky, and that's really short. It really sucks. I'm actually really disappointed in that because I'd like to live for a long time. I don't know if I'd want to live forever, and that's kind of what I'm going to get into today. So it is a brief spark in that long-lasting, perhaps infinite universe. There's an actual cool theory that's been toted around lately where the universe might be infinite. And if the universe is infinite, then there is going to be a place in time in the future where all of the atoms that build up our bodies are there again in the same makeup. So therefore, maybe we will live again. We just won't have the memories from the past, but we'll just be living the same life over and over again. So I really hope it's a good life for you, because you may have to live it over and over again. But that's just a neat little theory that I've heard recently. Nobody knows for sure if that's true. So within that small span, we carry moments that grow brighter with age and not dimmer. And I want to explore some of those memories that matter most to us, and to find out what it is that they give us and what eternity never could. So I just want you to internalize these for now, these questions. At the end, I kind of want to go around and see if anybody's willing to maybe mention some memories that mean something to them and what it is that it meant to them. But what is it that makes memory so meaningful for us? And is there a memory, or several memories, that spring to life when we say the word memory? And I'm going to get into a few of my own right now. So the very first time I had a party at my mom's house, which was my house because I was about 11 or 12 years old at the time, and I had a whole bunch of friends over, and we got 2 extra large party pizzas with some A&W root beer. So the first thing I wanted to do was to prove to the other kids that I could eat an entire pizza to myself. So I started slice by slice eating pizza and getting, pretty full, but I just really wanted to prove that I wasn't a lightweight. And so as I was about like the 13th or 14th slice, I was like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I need to wash this down with something. So I grabbed a pop. I grabbed an A&W root beer. And I was just kind of shaky, so I was kind of shaking it as I'm getting up, and I go to open it, and boom, it hits the ceiling of my mom's house. Sprayed it all over the ceiling. And it started dripping down onto my head. And I'm thinking, great, I don't know what I'm going to do here because I'm 11 or 12 years old and I don't know how to clean. And all the kids are saying, just like stand on my shoulders, we'll get it, we'll wipe it with a cloth or something. And I'm like, I don't know. And I could hear my mom in the other room saying, everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. So we ended up getting a cloth. I stood on my friend's shoulders, I wiped the ceiling, but then we had big brown smears across the white ceiling. And I'm like, great, I don't know what I'm going to do next. I guess I'm going to have to tell my mom. So I told my mom, and she's actually a cleaner by trade, so it kind of worked out. So she got some chemicals, she was spraying up there and everything, and she started wiping, and all of a sudden, there goes the paint too. So now we've got these big chunks of paint missing from the ceiling. We've got brown stains all over the ceiling. And I said, well, I guess we can maybe get some paint and paint the ceiling? I don't know. So she said, well, I think there's still some paint downstairs from when they painted, so let's go take a look. And meanwhile, all my friends are partying, they're having a good time, they're playing video games. Nintendo 64 was huge at the time. GoldenEye 007, if anyone remembers. So we get out the paint, and I paint a patch. And it just looks off, because it's nice, bright white, and everything else is just kind of dull white. And I said to her, well, I guess I'm going to learn my lesson here, and I'm going to be painting the entire ceiling. So then over the next week or so, I ended up painting the entire ceiling. And I learned a lot from that lesson. You need to take responsibility for the things that you do. Shouldn't try and prove yourself when you don't need to. And never shake a can of pop. The next one here is actually about the little guy that's running around. I think he's through that door there. I can't tell right now. But when he was about 1.5, he started getting out of his crib. So we're like, oh no, I guess we need to put him into a big boy bed because he's no longer able to stay in the crib. So we pushed it up against the wall. So on one side of it, he had a wall. Behind him was a giant headboard, so he couldn't fall out that way. And we got one of those fold-up gates along the side, so he couldn't fall off there either. Perfect. In the middle of the night, we hear, "Ah, my neck, my neck." I'm like, oh, great, what happened? Run into his room. We forgot to block the bottom of his bed off, and he somehow turned himself sideways and rolled himself off the bottom of the bed. I guess we're going to the emergency room to see what's going on. So I drive him in the middle of the night to the emergency room, and he's in good spirits, but he's saying, my neck, my neck, my neck. And that's pretty much the only words he could say at that time. You know, he was saying a few words by that point, but it was to be able to describe. He's listening. So, get him to the hospital, and we go to the x-ray room. And I said to the x-ray tech, do I need to take his shirt off? Because he had some pajamas on. And she said, no, it's fine. The x-ray can get through his clothes. I'm like, okay, fine. So I put him on the bed. She goes behind the booth and she goes, chick. And I'm like, what? And she goes, it's okay. Maybe take his shirt off. I'm like, okay. So I take his shirt off. And she goes, okay, let's place him back in the booth. And I'm going to go back over here and phew, okay. And I'm like, what's going on? And she goes, okay, I didn't want to tell you this ahead of time, but come take a look at my screen. So she goes, it looks like he may have a little fracture here, like in his collarbone. She's like, but this is the original screen I was looking at. And his entire rib cage was shattered into a million pieces. The pajama shirt he was wearing was a fluorescent dinosaur bone shirt. And somehow the x-ray machine picked up the fluorescent colors of the bones and made it look like a shattered rib cage. This memory will live on in my mind forever. And what I've learned from this one is that it can always be worse. He had a little hairline fracture in his collarbone. Whew, could have been way worse. So we made sure that his dresser was then put at the very bottom of his bed, so he was completely surrounded at nighttime. So this right here might look like a regular log. My cousins and I would always go out into the woods. I grew up in Muskoka, in Bracebridge, and we had this abundant forest behind our house. We would go out into the woods, and we'd build forts. One year, we actually built a fort on an island in the middle of this creek. And this is not the creek on the screen because it's an AI-generated image, but it looked a lot like that. There was an island in the middle of it. We dug down and we actually built an underground little bunker fort, which was kind of cool, until it filled with water. But this right here was a different story. The log in the picture is a lot thicker than the log that was actually in the event that happened. So my cousin Zach and I, we're probably maybe 9 or 10. We climbed out onto this log, and we were grabbing onto a giant pine tree to swing into the water. And my other cousin Michael was down on the ground, and he said, I'll count to 3, and at the same time, you guys jump. So he goes, 1, 2, and as he was about to say 3, the log went, and we both fell down into the water. Which would have been fun if it wasn't for the jagged rocks that were underneath, which then cut my toe to the point where I had to go get 3 stitches to keep it from dangling off the end of my foot. So in that memory, I try to keep in mind that don't do dares, for one thing, because it was kind of a dare, and at the same time, to always make sure that you're being safe. Make sure that safety is a big concern of yours if you go to do anything. And this one here, I grew up with a German Shepherd, and I actually had a German Shepherd later in life as well. But the one that I had when I was a small child, my parents were separated, and my dad had a dog. So whenever I'd go over to my dad's house, we had this German Shepherd, and she was the most loving dog that I've ever experienced until I had my own later on. But basically, One day I was swimming off the end of the dock, and it was kind of murky water, so sometimes you couldn't really tell where you were. So I came up and I was actually underneath the dock, and I didn't know how to get back out again. And this dog, her name was Holly, she jumped in the water. She could hear me flailing about. She went underneath the dock. I grabbed onto her tail, and she actually pulled me up to safety. So she actually got me up to the point where I could get out of the water, and ended up choking a bit of water out onto the ground. But basically, she was there to help me get out of that situation. So in this memory, I always remember that dog can be man's best friend, and also to basically endless love. You know, this dog who put herself in danger to make sure that I was safe is always going to be one of my memories. So why the finite lives that we have create precious memories? So scarcity makes meaning. I don't know if you've ever heard that before, but if something is in abundance, we don't really care too much about it, right? There's, if when I was a kid, I wanted a whole drawer full of candies because I saw in the Nutty Professor, the Eddie Murphy version, he had this giant drawer full of candies in his desk, and I said, when I get to that age, that's what I'm going to do. So I did it. I filled a whole drawer full of candies, and I would just pull them out and grab them every once in a while. But guess what? I got old pretty quickly, and I kind of got sick to my stomach a lot too, right? But when something is scarce, when you have a treat every once in a while, it makes it extra special. I think that's kind of what we see with life as well. So moments can't be repeated, and that's why we cherish them. So if you're going to go on a trip, you're looking forward to this trip, it's going to be an amazing trip, and you do it, and it is amazing. You can't really go and replicate that again, but you can live it again in your memories like a movie. And nostalgia is a big emotional proof that moments that we had mattered. Whenever I think of nostalgia, I think of Blockbuster. And the reason I think of Blockbuster is because a lot of my childhood was actually family movie nights. We would go to the movie store, walk around, grab the boxes, look at the back of them, feel them, just such an amazing feeling, smelling the popcorn in the air. There was something about the atmosphere in there. You would see friends from around the block that you don't get to see normally. It was such an amazing time. And those are some of the memories I cherish the most. It's the nostalgia. It's the moments that I can't recapture again. I always say to my wife, if I end up winning $1 million, I'm opening a Blockbuster. It probably won't do very well, but that's okay. At least I can walk around and reshelve things and pop some popcorn. But if life were endless, I don't think that anything would feel rare. And rarity is that birthplace of value, so as we discussed before. So the paradox of eternity, so if there were an eternity where the years stretched into millions or trillions or quadrillions or googolplex, whatever, would we still remember the life that we had? Right? We think about the 80 to 100 years that we have on this earth. At what point in the future are we going to forget the moment of holding our child? Or learning to ride a bike? Or falling in love? Right? Those are the things that I always think. If our lives last forever, when are we going to forget those things? I forget things now from like 2 days ago. So think about an eternity. Think about how long it would be. Those memories aren't going to be there anymore. So I think that that's part of what makes it important for us now, here and now, to have those memories. So I don't think, that they would survive, and that's what makes memories so sacred. So this is a poem by Dr. Richard Dawkins, which I know he's a little bit of a controversial figure, and I don't necessarily agree with a lot of the things he says anymore. But he did say some really good things at one point, and this is a poem that I always share with my clients at Recovering from Religion. If you don't know what Recovering from Religion is, it's actually an organization that is there to be a shoulder to cry on, or someone to listen, a peer support worker. If you're doubting beliefs or you're having issues at your current church and you're needing to find a new church. We're not there to deconvert anyone or to tell them that that there's no divine or anything like that. It's self-guided. It's helping them work on their own issues and come up with their own solutions. So if we can, I'd like everyone to just close your eyes, and I'm going to read this to you, and we can use this as kind of a meditation, and you can kind of see why I bring this up to our clients at Recovering from Religion, because it's a really good way of explaining that if there is no afterlife, because we don't know either way, right? But if there isn't one, this makes it meaningful. We are the lucky ones. We are going to die, and that makes us the lucky ones. Most people are never going to die because they are never going to be born. The potential people who could have been here in my place, but who will in fact never see the light of day, outnumber the sand grains of Arabia. Certainly those unborn ghosts include greater poets than Keats, scientists greater than Newton. We know this because the set of possible people allowed by our DNA so massively exceeds the set of actual people. In the teeth of these stupefying odds, it is you and I, in our ordinariness, that are here. We privileged few who won the lottery of birth against all odds, how dare we whine at our inevitable return to that prior state from which the vast majority have never stirred? So I really like that poem because it reminds me that I am lucky for being here. I did win the lottery. There's a lot of people who will never be here because they're never going to be born. So, and life isn't always sunshine and roses. There's a lot of stuff that comes up that is difficult to deal with. But overall, we are lucky for being here. We get to experience this life that a lot of people don't, that never will. So, what I like to think of as our afterlife is memories in our loved ones. So we often see memories as our true continuation. So we live on in those stories that people tell, and in the impressions that we leave, the love that we offered, in the moments shared with others, and time can't steal that away. That is our memories. That is our family's memories. And this is the human kind of immortality. It's rooted not in eternity, but in the meaning that we create here and now. So some methods of memory recollection. Anytime I'm driving by my public school that I went to, I always visualize all the times I was in class, probably doodling away when I should have been learning, things like that. Anytime I hear a song, like my wedding song, I think of that day. Such an amazing day. All my friends and family being there. I couldn't talk to them because it's so busy, But just, having the experience of being there and being loved by so many people all at once. Taste. Anytime I try a butter tart, it reminds me of my Nana. My Nana made the best butter tarts, and she took them to the grave with her, and I'm really upset about that. Now, there is a recipe, but just no one can replicate it the same way that she did. And, anytime I taste a butter tart, I go, it's just not good enough, not good enough. Touch. Anytime I even touch my own body, I have a scar on my hand here. And my wife and I, for one of our anniversaries, went to Peche Island, which is a little island off of Windsor, Ontario. And we kayaked there. And I am not an outdoorsy person by any means. I am not a really good kayaker. I'm not a really good walker. I just don't move properly. I'm kind of like an amoeba. I move around. But, she's great at all that stuff. She's a hockey player. She does all that stuff. We were kayaked there, and there was this bridge. And I'm like, oh, you know what? I'm going to be a superstar, and I'm going to go underneath this bridge on my kayak. Nope. So I started going, and I ended up grabbing onto the bridge, and I'm pushing myself like this. And, oh, no, there's a rusty nail sliced my hand open, which we didn't have any bandages or anything at this time because we were out in the middle of an island. I flipped my kayak, dropped my phone, my lunch, everything out into the water. Luckily, there was only about 4 or 5 feet of water when I was able to reach around and grab all that stuff. But our lunch was completely ruined. I had a big open, gaping wound on my hand. And we ended up finding somebody on the island who had like a dirty old rag that I used to wrap my hand with, so I'm kind of scared at what diseases I may have caught at that point. But anyway, I didn't care. I just wanted it wrapped up. We didn't stay very long after that. We ended up going back to Windsor, and we ended up going to a restaurant, and we had a really nice sit-down lunch instead of the lunch that I had made for this picnic, but that's okay. We rolled with the punches, and we made it work. But anytime I see that scar on my hand, I always think, yeah, that was a interesting time. And smell. I don't know about anyone in this room, but Christmas time and other holidays, the smell of turkey, the smell of pie, the smell of whatever it is that you have in your house, that always kind of brings those feelings to me of joy and occasion and celebrating with family. So why these memories shape us? I think that there's 4 different things that kind of work towards shaping us through memories, and in them we find, this is who I am. So it kind of builds our identity. Gives us a connection to this is where I belong. Gives us meaning. This is what mattered at that time and also now. And continuity. I have lived, I have loved. Continuity to pass on to the next generation, telling them stories, reliving things over and over again. And they form the story of our life, and our story is what survives us. And we're not going to pass on everything. It's impossible to pass on everything. But what we do matters deeply to our loved ones. And there's a quote by Maya Angelou that I always like to bring up. I always like to bring up a lot of Maya Angelou quotes because she's an amazing person. But it's that people won't remember what we did, and they won't remember what we said, but they'll remember how we made them feel. And I think that's an important thing, especially when discussing memories. And a memory could be a sense of humor. You know, someone can say, oh, my dad had a really great sense of humor, and that's why I really remember him. Could be a favorite saying. My grandma had a lot of favorite sayings, and I don't know if any of them are repeatable in public, but she had some really funny ones and some doozies. One of them was, I remember, what was it? Something about, since Christ was a cowboy. I always thought that was a funny quote. Oh, that's been around since Christ was a cowboy. I don't even know what that means, but I thought that was really funny. The other thing, too, I can't remember the exact quote, but she did say something, I think it was like, I really don't remember at this point, but she said something that was like completely out to lunch, and when we questioned her on it, she was like, I never said that. It's like, yes, it's something you say all the time. So, things like that. It could be a recipe, like I mentioned with her butter tarts. Could be a life lesson. Lots of things that we do teach us little lessons along the way, things that we need to pay attention to and pick up, and things that we have to learn the hard way. And I think sometimes learning things the hard way is better than actually being taught a lesson. Someone can say that the stove over there is hot, don't touch it. But if you burn yourself on the stove, you're going to learn that lesson a lot faster, right? Not saying that that's the right way to do things, but just I've been electrocuted by sticking things in sockets that I shouldn't have done, but I learned never to do that again. So, the moment that we showed up for somebody else. So, I think it was Jean mentioned the homeless situation and there being less people using the homeless services. So my family, actually, this is through our local Humanist Canada chapter that Martin brought up. We go every Christmas Eve to feed the homeless at a place called Street Help in Windsor. And this year, it did seem like there was maybe less people, which is a good sign. But they always come for like warm clothes, warm meal, coffee, and my kids come along with me as well. So they're seeing how we can help the next generation and how we help the people that are not able to help themselves. And they find that to be super meaningful. So I'm hoping that they carry on that tradition as well. We also have an adopted street in Windsor through our Humanist Canada chapter as well. And again, my kids come and help pick up garbage. So it's instilling in them the memories of helping out and how it makes you feel good and how it helps everybody around you and helps the community. And these become their treasures long after we're gone. They're going to be passing those things on to the next generation. And so what I like to say are these are gifts, right? These are gifts that we're passing on to the next generation. And we don't need an eternity for our life to have meaning. So we have moments that moved us. We have people who matter, love given freely, lessons learned, stories lived and shared. And our finite time is not a limitation. It's actually the reason that everything matters. If you think about that limited time, it's very meaningful. So here's an exercise. If you want to just think about one memory that shaped you, what did it teach you, and why has time never taken it away?
Become a sustaining champion of West Hill United's work by committing to an automatic monthly donation. Learn more or donate now through Canada Helps.